guys, and welcome back to another Mystery Monday video on my channel. I don't really have too much to say at the beginning of this video, so let's get right into today's case. Mary Rachel Arnold was born on November 15th, 1957. She preferred to go by her middle name, which again was Rachel, so for the purpose of this video, that is what I will be referring to her as. Just 6 months before this case took place, Rachel was married actually at the age of 17 to a man by the name of Tommy Trillica, taking on the last name Trillica. Again, Rachel was only 17 years old, and Tommy actually had a 2-year-old daughter, meaning that 17-year-old Rachel would now be a stepmother to a 2-year-old girl. Now, Rachel and Tommy's situation was a pretty strange one, if I do say so myself. I always feel a little bit bad judging these kinds of situations because you never actually know what's going on. But after diving into this case, I do feel like I need to state that I think that their situation was a little bit strange. So the way that Rachel and Tommy had actually met was because Tommy had previously been engaged to Rachel's older sister, Deborah. Now, if that isn't strange enough, Deborah, Tommy, and Rachel had actually all been living together at this time since they got married. They all lived in one house that they all paid for together. Deborah actually came out and said that although her sister was now married to her ex-fiance, she had never really had a really serious relationship with Tommy, including the engagement. Nothing in the relationship was very serious, so the fact that him and Rachel were now married was just something that didn't really bother her. Today's case takes place on December 23rd, 1974 in Fort Worth, Texas, when Rachel woke up and realized that she had a lot of Christmas shopping that she still needed to get done. Originally, Rachel had planned on asking Deborah to go to the mall with her, but Deborah told her that she was too tired and she just didn't have the energy today, so she would not be going to the mall along with Rachel. Because Deborah was too tired and Rachel didn't want to go to the mall alone, she went on to ask her friend 14-year-old Renee Wilson. Renee Wilson was born on August 29th, 1960, and the two girls met at high school, which was Southwest High School located in Fort Worth, Texas. Now, not only were the girls school friends, but their families were actually very close, and they did a lot of family things together. They went camping, I believe. They went on like a lot of family trips, a lot of little road trips here and there. Their families just generally spent a lot of time together, making the girls quite close. Renee agreed to go to the mall with Rachel, but told her that she would have to be back by 4 p.m. and no later than that. Renee had actually started recently dating another boy by the name of Terry Mosley, and the two would be attending their first Christmas party that evening. So being a young girl, and I'm sure most of us can relate to this, Renee wanted to make sure that she was home in time with enough time to get ready, to take pictures, all that kind of stuff that you like to do when you're a young girl. You want to have enough time to get ready and then get unready in case something doesn't go right. So she just needed to be home by 4 p.m. That was the only guidelines that she said, as long as they were home by 4 p.m. sharp. Before going to the mall with Rachel, Renee had actually told her boyfriend Terry that she would be going last-minute Christmas shopping with Rachel. Now, while this conversation was going on, Terry's younger sister, Julie, who was born on August 5th, 1965, making her only 9 years old at the time, was listening in on the conversation. And this is when she decided that she really, really wanted to go to the mall with Renee and Rachel, so she started consistently asking her mother. Now, at first her mom said no because Julie was very young. She was a lot younger than the other two girls, and she didn't think that she was old enough to be going to the mall by herself without any supervision. But after Julie kept asking and Renee and Rachel agreed, she decided that it would be fine if Julie tagged along with the two girls as long as they were again back by 4 p.m. The three girls then all loaded up into Rachel's car and they drove over to the mall and they parked in the Upper Sears parking lot. Now, I guess the day progressed and all of the families again were told that the girls would be home by 4 p.m. But when 4 p.m. came and none of the girls arrived home, all of the families began to get worried. Rachel had even told Tommy that she would be home by 4 p.m., so he was expecting her. Again, Renee had told her parents she would be home by 4 p.m., and Julie also wasn't supposed to be at the mall, but her mom hesitantly agreed, so she thought that the girls would have had Julie home right on time, but they were very, very late. By 6 o'clock, all three of the families were in an absolute complete panic. But Rachel's younger brother, Rusty, who was only 11 years old, was really, really struck by this, and he was super concerned about where his sister was. So him and his mother got into her car and they drove down to the mall to search for the three girls. After driving down to the mall, it was really easy for Rusty and Rachel's mother to locate Rachel's vehicle. But something that struck out to me and seems very odd is that all of the items that Rachel had purchased earlier that day were inside the vehicle, meaning that they had finished shopping, came back to the car, and put the items in the car before going wherever they now were. Shortly after locating Rachel's vehicle, a small group of the girl's family and friends came down to the mall to search and look and see if they could come up with anything. They walked around the mall and asked store owners if they had seen the girls, but nobody could give a for sure answer whether they had seen the girls that day or not, so this is when the police were called. The police arrived on the scene very quickly and immediately took down 3 missing persons cases. They really searched Rachel's car as well as the mall and the surrounding area, but unfortunately turned up completely empty-handed. The day after the girls disappeared, Tommy received a very strange letter in his mailbox. This letter was addressed to Thomas A. Trillica, which is very important because Rachel always referred to Tommy as Tommy. Nobody could ever recall a time since they met when Rachel had ever called Tommy Thomas. Even Tommy himself said that he had never ever in the entire time that he had known Rachel ever heard him referred to her as Thomas. The letter that was found in the mailbox read, "I know I'm going to catch it, but we just had to get away. We're going to Houston. See you in about a week. The car's in the Sears upper parking lot. Love, Rachel." And as you have probably already guessed, the 3 girls never returned home. Now, again, this letter is very strange, not only because it is referring to Tommy as Thomas, but Tommy, who again was married to Rachel, as well as Rachel's mother, both really studied the letter and said that there was no way that this handwriting would ever match Rachel's handwriting. It didn't look even similar. There was just nothing about it that resembled Rachel's handwriting. Now, this letter was sent to a specialist, but after studying it and going through it, the results came back inconclusive, so there is no for sure answer whether this letter was written by somebody else or Rachel. Something else that crossed my mind after reading this letter is, yes, Rachel was living an adult life, but the 3 girls were pretty young. Why would they all of a sudden just need to go to Houston? And if they left Rachel's car in the Sears parking lot, how did they plan on getting there? Not only that, but it was also Christmas, and Julie again was only 9 years old. And Christmas is some of the most exciting, memorable times of my entire childhood. So I can just imagine how exciting that would be for a child. You think Santa's coming, you want to get the gifts, you want to hang out with your family. It is some of the funnest times of the entire year. So I can't imagine Julie even agreeing to go to Houston when she knows that Santa would be coming the next night and all of the holiday season, and Renee was really looking forward to the dance with her boyfriend. The entire thing just doesn't make sense at all. Why would these 3 girls just all of a sudden decide to leave out of nowhere, especially during the holidays? The letter was found to have a blurred out postal code on it, which was later determined to be 76083, which was determined to be the postal code for an area that was over 100 miles away from Fort Worth, Texas. But after the Postal Service was investigated and talked to, they determined that it is absolutely impossible that this letter came from anywhere outside of Fort Worth, Texas. Because if it had come from anywhere outside of Fort Worth, Texas, it wouldn't have ended up in Tommy's mailbox just 24 hours after the girls went missing. After the girls went missing, several witnesses came forward saying that they saw 3 girls being forced into some vehicle, but none of the witnesses could agree on the make of the car or the description of the person that they believed was forcing the girls into a vehicle, and none of these witness statements could be followed up on or confirmed. So right now they were just speculation. And like in all cases like these, all of the sex offenders and convicted killers and people in the area who had criminal records were all brought in for questioning, but led investigators to absolutely nothing, just more dead ends. There was never really any solid leads in this case, and police never really had solid suspects throughout the entire investigation. One of the witness statements that I thought was very interesting was from a couple people who claimed that they saw the girls being forced into a vehicle by a man who was dressed as a security guard. Now, you can't say for sure whether this person was actually a security guard or if they were just wearing a security guard uniform, so that is hard to determine, but I do think that this witness statement is very, very interesting, and you will need to keep this in mind because it will come into play a little bit later on in the case. In 1975, after the police really didn't have any luck in this case, they couldn't find any solid witness statements, they couldn't find any solid suspects, and they couldn't really find any evidence, the families all decided to put their money together and hire a PI by the name of Joe Swam. Now, Joe Swam was a man who was very, very dedicated to his job, and while investigating this case, he was really invested in it. He made sure that this case stayed in the media eye so that the girls never left people's minds. They were always in the media, they were always talked about, and he pushed so hard on the police to investigate this case that he actually was able to get the case files that the police had on this case given to him by the police, which is very rare to happen when the families hire a private investigator on their own. This gave the family some hope, and they really thought that because Joe was so investigated in their children's case that he would be able to solve it, or at least to get some evidence that would help police solve it and lead them to what exactly happened to their girls. But unfortunately, in 1979, Joe Swam actually passed away from an overdose. Now, his death was ruled a suicide, but the people who were very close to him and knew him personally found this hard to believe and think that his death is very strange. But to make matters worse, it was allegedly written in his will that after he passed away, he wanted all of the files on anything he had ever researched to be completely destroyed. That included all of the research and investigating that he had done on the Fort Worth girls. 7 years after the girls had disappeared, a witness came forward and told police that they had witnessed the 3 girls being forced into a vehicle by a man. The witness said that they tried to intervene, but the man told them to back off and that this was a family matter and they had nothing to do with this and just to mind their own business, causing the witness to back off. Now, why it took this witness 7 years to come forward with this information is unknown. I have no idea. But after trying to research this lead, police could not determine whether this was factual or not. And this was just another witness sighting that they couldn't confirm. So the police were completely at a dead end, and this case went cold for quite some time. In 2001, police really began to crack down on this case. They thought that with new technology, they would be able to find out what exactly happened to the Fort Worth girls, and they held a press conference basically saying that. And they also said that they had about 20 new witnesses and a bunch of new leads to follow in this case, and they were just really hopeful that this would finally lead them to finding out what exactly happened that day and where the girls were now. At this time, along with the new technology that I mentioned before, they were able to test the letter that Tommy had received the day after the girls went missing, and they were unable to find any of Rachel's DNA on this letter. They did run the DNA that was found on the letter through the database, but it came back inconclusive and they couldn't match it to anybody in the system. In 2001, after holding this press conference about finding new leads and hoping to close this case, a man by the name of Bill Hutchinson came forward to police. He was actually a security guard at the Sears that the girls vanished from at the time when the girls disappeared, and he was also an ex-police officer. He said that while working on the night that the girls disappeared, around 11:30 p.m., he got into an argument with a man driving a large truck. Bill could see that the man in the vehicle was accompanied by 3 young girls who fit the description of the Fort Worth trio. Now, at this time, he didn't know that the girls were missing, and eventually the 2 men decided that the argument that they were having was just a misunderstanding, so they started to joke around and laugh a bit. And Bill said that at this time, the girls also were chiming in and joking and laughing, and they seemed happy, suggesting that the man that they were with was somebody that they knew and were comfortable with. It had also turned out that the day after the girls had vanished, when Bill had heard the news, he did call into police with this report and told them what he had witnessed, but the police didn't take him seriously. They just brushed off this report and never followed up on his claim. Now, I just think that this witness sighting is very interesting because, again, Bill said that this man was dressed as a security guard. He didn't say whether this man was wearing a mall security uniform or if he was a security guard for somewhere else, and it also isn't clear if Bill had known this man or if he was just a complete stranger. But I do think that this is a very interesting witness sighting, as there was actually a few other witness sightings claiming that they had seen the girls either being forced in or in a vehicle accompanied by a man wearing a security uniform. But according to police, they were since able to identify the man that Bill was talking to on that night, and he has now been cleared as a suspect and had nothing to do with the girls' disappearance. Rusty, Rachel's younger brother, had actually spent a lot of his life investigating his sister's disappearance, and in 1999 he was contacted by a man by the name of Dan James. Dan James had also been researching this case and investigating this case on his own time, and he said that he had uncovered information about this case that the police hadn't uncovered yet. He claimed that there were several sightings of both Renee and Rachel at a lot of different places all over the United States, but he said that none of these sightings ever included Julie. Now that of course isn't a fact that we could confirm, but I do find it very interesting. Dan also believes, like most people, that the girls were abducted by somebody that they knew well and really trusted. In order for this to have gone over so easily, I feel like whoever abducted these girls was somebody that all three of them were quite comfortable with. Now, like I just mentioned, Rusty, Rachel's younger brother, put a lot of time and effort into this case, and he, for a very, very long time, strongly believed that Deborah, his older sister, was responsible for the three girls' disappearance. He also believed for a long time that Deborah was actually the one who wrote the letter that was found in Tommy's mailbox. Now, the reason that kind of makes sense is because we can't forget that Deborah actually lived in the same house as Tommy. So for her to have put the letter in the mailbox would have been very easy. Deborah, however, claims that she has absolutely nothing to do with the girls' disappearance and she has no idea where they are, and she actually said that it is her best bet that the girls were forced into some kind of white slavery. And when I think about it, it does seem that Deborah would have a solid motive for wanting the girls to disappear. She was also very, very close to Renee, just like Rachel was, meaning that she would know who these girls trusted. In fact, she was somebody that these girls probably would have trusted. So it would have been very easy for her to find somebody or be that person to get the girls into a situation that they just couldn't get out of. But that is pretty much all there is on this case. To this day, there is still little to zero evidence that could suggest what exactly happened to the girls on that day while they were at the mall. It is just a completely cold case that doesn't seem like it is going in any solid direction. The police, again, have never had any solid suspects, and there has never really been any solid evidence in this case. My heart sincerely goes out to the families of all three of these girls. I cannot imagine what it is like to lose somebody like this and not know where they are, especially around the holiday season when they were just going to do things that everybody does around the holidays. It is just absolutely heartbreaking. But guys, that brings us to the end of this video. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to comment down below what you'd like to see in my future videos, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss any future videos from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys!